Yes, people, how are we doing? So, we've got some more bacons on the channel because, as you know, the way the channel is going, everyone wants to hear these stories and get these predators and beasts out into the public domain, let them know exactly what's going on with them, not just inside of prison, but the ones that are out here that go unnoticed or what the general public don't really hear about. And I'm exposing them on this channel, letting everyone know what type of fucking creatures and predators there is kicking around. Now, this story has come to light, which, with us being up here in the northeast, I didn't even hear about this story. So it just goes to show a lot of the time these stories go unnoticed. And this one is about a grooming gang up here in Newcastle. Now, a lot of people are afraid to talk about these type of subjects for whatever reason. Obviously, the way they get branded, get called for, right, and different things. But as you can see on this channel, I do a wide variety of different stories. And the majority of them, if you have a look, all these bacons have been white men who are in prison that have been attacked. Now, some of the terms in the video I'm going to have to change for obvious reasons because YouTube doesn't like certain words. So, when I say R-A-P-E, I'm going to use the word hairy, which doesn't sound very good, but this is the prison term. Hairy Ape equals. So, a gang who groomed and harried a 13-year-old have been sent to prison. The four attackers were aged between 15 and 21 at the time, and this happened between August 2018 and April 2019. It has only came to light, obviously, when the girl was getting a bit older. She's realised what had happened to her, went to the coppers, laid everything out, what had happened to her when she was a vulnerable 13-year-old girl. The girl said in court that they made her life a living nightmare and tortured her as a youngster. Now that's the pair there, the Syrian brothers Omar and Mohammed Badreddin came over here in 2016 as Syrian refugees. Judge Amanda Rippon said the girl was already extremely vulnerable when she met the far more sophisticated males in Newcastle. She was repeatedly used near the castle in Newcastle city centre and behind a burger restaurant after being groomed with alcohol and cigarettes. Mohammed Badreddin, then aged 17, was aggressive and rough and threatened that his brother Omar, then aged 20, would hurt her if she didn't do stuff with him. The girl was also harried at her own home when the brothers, who moved to the UK as refugees from the war in Syria, telling her she would be killed or taken to another country. So as you can imagine, the lass was absolutely petrified. These older males from another country threatening to take her away and dump her in another country. The court heard she was harried by Omar on at least 7 occasions, the first time immediately after his brother had harried her. Al-Aboud, then aged 17, also a refugee from Syria, badgered the girl to have contact with him, saying that she had let the bedridden brothers do it. Now it was his turn to do it, and that she should let him do it. Al-Suhaimi, who was 15 at the time and from Kuwait, was heard by a passing witness saying it was his turn with the girl after she had already been used of these sick creatures. He also SA'd another 12-year-old girl. This all came out in the court case. Judge Rippon saying he was copying the behaviour of the Badreddin brothers, whose swagger he foolishly held in high regard. No excuse at all. Not an excuse. It sounds as though the judge was actually making the excuse there. In a statement read to the court, the 13-year-old victim, who is now 19, said, "My childhood turned into what I can only describe as a living nightmare." She said she dropped out of school and turned to drugs and self-harming to cope with the trauma, adding her family had been devastated by what happened. The girl said she was petrified of the man who had tortured her and hurt her in so many ways, adding the experience and impact had been horrific. So that was from the victim, but in mitigation from the defense team is absolutely pathetic. Now, I will read this out. This is what they're saying. In mitigation for Mohammed Badreddin, Sue Hurst said he had grown up in a war zone in Syria. So what fucking excuse is that? Glenn Gatland for Omar Badreddin said he had been haunted by his experiences in Syria, having lost an older brother in the conflict, and felt deep shame and guilt for being in prison. Robin Patton for Alaboud of Tilmouth in Throckley said he had been physically puny after undergoing treatment for a recurrent childhood cancer and had not been a leader of the group. Well, what has that got to do with what he had done? In mitigation for Al Soemi, Joe Hedworth said his family moved to the UK from Kuwait in 2016, adding he was immature and easily led. So they're trying to say this is an excuse to get a hold of a Newcastle 13-year-old girl and do these despicable deeds because they've already seen this sort of stuff going on in their country in war zones. They want to bring the war zone to Newcastle and inflict injury upon vulnerable teenage girls. No fucking excuse whatsoever, in my opinion. So now I'll just go on to say what the judge actually said in the summing up and the sentences that they actually got. So Judge Rippon said the Badreddin brothers of Newcastle led the group and quickly identified the girl could be manipulated and groomed. She said they treated her like a toy and found it entertaining, exploiting her and using her for sex. Even when she begged you to treat her more kindly and told you truthfully she was harming herself and could not cope, you made fun of her. The girl even tried learning their language and started reading the Quran in an attempt to befriend the men, and in return she was abused and passed around. The men, the first three of whom must sign the S offenders register for life, and Al Soemi for 10 years, received the following sentences. Omar Badreddin, 26, for 5 counts of hairy, jailed for 18 years. Mohammed Badreddin, 26, for 6 counts of hairy and 1 count of assault by P, jailed for 13 years. Josefa Alaboud, 23, 2 counts of hairy and assault occasional actual body harm, jailed for 5.5 years. Hamoud Al Soemi, 21, for 3 counts of SA and 1 assault by, jailed for 2 years, suspended for 2 years with 180 hours unpaid work. Now, how the fucking hell has he getting a suspended sentence? He didn't just use the 13-year-old, he also done it to a 12-year-old as well, and he has been given a suspended sentence. So only a few years after being in the country, or a couple of years, they were doing these type of despicable deeds to young girls in Newcastle. Then they were going and rioting in 2020 with coppers in the streets in Newcastle, and they were still out on the streets. What the fuck is going on here? So in 2020, they were actually at a Black Lives Matter protest in Newcastle, launching missiles at the police. And they got an extra year on top of the sentence for that. And they were actually chucking things at the coppers, throwing bottles, smashing them off the ground. They didn't get remanded, and they've just had a sentence added on top of 12 months. Look at all the other sentences that have been dished out for this type of behaviour. And these have getting 12 months added on, which will probably be concurrent, and they won't have to serve that sentence because it's concurrent. But guess what? There wasn't one mention of these being deported when they leave prison. Come to this country for refuge from a war-torn country, then you do these type of offences, and you're still free to live in this country. These type of offenders, like I've said loads of times on this channel, and I'm not just referring to this ethnicity. Look at all the other videos I've done. These type of offenders cannot be rehabilitated. That's their preference. That's what they do. They will never change. They might fool the parole board that they've changed, do ex-offender programs in prison, and say I'm no longer a bacon. Let me out. Once the licence is up, they're back at it. Fucking mental. I'll be covering more stories like this. As I've mentioned, I'm doing a wide variety, and I'm not afraid to talk about these type of offenders either. A lot of people are on these channels. No one speaks about it. It's all kept quiet because they're afraid to get branded or get the channel took down. But I'm talking about a wide variety of different bacons, so I can't be accused of being far right. But as usual, people, hopefully you are enjoying the content. And if you are, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care, everyone.